this is BioPhoenix here, and this is going to be a special episode, kinda, because I'll be reviewing a series of games that happens to be one of my favorites, and that is the Deception series, which was a PlayStation exclusive. And they are all made by Tecmo, and there are 4 games within the series. Like, first we have Tecmo's Deception, and then there's Kagero Deception 2, and then after that it's Deception 3 Dark Delusion, which were all for the PS1, and then finally on the PS2 there's a game called Trapt, and no, not the band, the game. And I found that they are pretty underrated for the most part, but the series is known for being stuck in a castle and people are trying to kill you, and your only method to kill them is by using traps, which is pretty unique, but interesting. So alright, let's start with the first game, and that happens to be Tecmo's Deception Invitation to Darkness, which was released in 1996. But before officially starting the game, I think the title should have been different though. I think it should have been called Deception Invitation to Darkness rather than Tecmo's Deception, because I just find it weird how the company name is in the title. But then again, Tecmo has done that in the past, like they've done that with Tecmo Bowl and Tecmo Stack'em. And imagine if they did that with like Ninja Gaiden, it would be like Tecmo's Ninja Gaiden. Yeah, that wouldn't work. Anyway, we'll just go on with it. So let's start off with the story. It begins that you were on a journey before and you returned to the king, but after discussing some things, the king was assassinated randomly. And over there you see is your brother in this game, and he has framed you for the murder of your father. Wow, what an asshole. And shortly after, you were actually supposed to be executed, but you were saved by dark forces because you made a prayer to be saved no matter for good or bad. So afterwards, you see a shadow of like some type of person, and that person tells you to go to the Castle of the Damned, which is not far from where you are. And therefore, when you get to the Castle of the Damned, she tells you that you can get great power. So I guess you'll might as well just take her word for it, because you know, you kinda just got your ass saved when you were supposed to be executed, so let's just go along with it. And once you get into the castle, this is pretty much where like the game starts. So once you start moving around, as you can tell, it's a first-person view, and it kind of seems like a survival horror at first. But after you get chased by like the owner of the castle, which happens to be wearing a hockey mask that looks like something out of like Friday the 13th, and doing a little bit of puzzles here and there, you pretty much had to fight the guy that was chasing you around. And by the way, his name is Ardabaran. Yeah, that's kind of a really stupid name, but you know, we'll just go along with it. But after beating him at his own game, you pretty much have to talk to that shadow thing that you met in the forest, although it's the real person, and her name is Astrate. And basically she tells you that you are the new master of the castle, and that therefore you had to resurrect the devil. Resurrecting the devil, eh? Wow, that's a pretty big goal if you ask me. And that is pretty much the basic of it there, like, at least with like the beginning anyway. But yes, this is pretty much where like the real game begins, so it doesn't look like a survival horror anymore. It's actually more like a strategy game. And now you can pretty much like set your own traps, like bear traps, spikes, pitfalls, and cages to your advantage. And to kill the intruders that are trying to kill you, you can either like put them to death just by like lowering down their HP to 0, or if you capture them correctly, you can actually do whatever you want to them, like kill them for gold, remove their soul for MP, and later on you can actually enslave them to make monsters. And I know what you're all thinking, what would happen if you like enslaved a female character? Well, I guess that means you get to have your own special maid, if you know what I mean. Okay, that was offensive, I apologize for that. But making monsters in this game though, you need to actually enslave a certain amount of people depending on which monster you want to make. And I know once you actually make the monster, you can summon them by using block orbs for one attack, which is kind of interesting, but you don't want to rely on it too much because, you know, block orbs are only limited. And one pretty interesting thing that you can do in this game is that you can actually upgrade the castle by like making like more rooms and stuff. It's actually kind of cool. And you can pretty much upgrade your own traps, which is nice. And one thing I actually do like about this game though is that the fact that it does take a little bit of strategy to actually like figure out how to do some things, which is all good, I find. Oh, but you gotta love some of the names of these invaders, though. You're gonna laugh. Like there's Scuba. Yeah, I guess he's supposed to be a scuba diver, I guess. I don't know. And one last example would be Coolboo. Okay, what the fuck? That's just fucked up. Okay, yeah, anyway. But we better get used to those dumb names. Now, one thing I will explain without any spoilers is that there are 6 different endings with this game, and that means there is a bit of replay value, which is actually nice, and also some of the endings of this game are actually kind of interesting, I find. Okay, we're all finished with that, so let's move on to the other things. I find the controls are good and responsive, but one complaint I have with the intruders is that they can be really stupid sometimes, and they'll follow you wherever you go. Like sometimes they'll be like a pillar is in your way and you're like hiding behind it because you don't want to get hit by something, but yet they still follow you directly to where you are with the pillar still in the way, so they just keep on like walking into it, and I'm just like, okay, come on, seriously, you can't just like walk around the pillar, you dumb fuck. But one random thing that really does amuse me in this game is the merchants. Okay, first off, they try to kill you by like throwing like pots and pans at you, which is pretty ridiculous. But when you talk to them, you can actually like buy and like sell stuff to them, so it's just like, okay, so technically you're trying to kill me, but at the same time you're helping me. Okay, you don't make any sense, but you know what, fuck you, I'm gonna kill you anyways. Now, the graphics for this game are actually pretty nice for its time. Like, yeah, I know, it's blocky and all this type of shit, but seriously though, if Minecraft is blocky and that's a newer game, I don't really see why this game can't be either. Then again, this game was made in 1996 after all, but hey, I think it looks good for its time. Now, for the music in this game, I fucking love it. I just find this game has like a dark, mystical feel to it, and I just find it sounds really nice altogether. Also, just for a random fact about me, is that like this soundtrack for this game is like probably like one of my many favorite video game musics. Oh, and I find one thing that is funny with the back of the case of this game is that it actually has a warning label saying, "Warning, may contain satanic references." I just find that very weird, but at the same time, it's actually kind of funny. And oddly enough, this is actually like the second game I ever got for my PS1, but it's actually like the oldest one that I actually still have. And by the way, the first game I ever owned was Crash Bandicoot 2, but sadly I don't have that anymore. So yes, I pretty much played this game when I was really young, so I guess that means I'm like a devil child or something. But anyway, who the fuck cares? This game's fucking awesome anyways. Now, if you want to buy this game, I usually see it from around to like $15 to $30. Wish I actually have seen it for like around that price before, but sadly I don't see it very often though. But if you ever do randomly see it, I would suggest picking it up if you can. Now, if I had to rate this game, I'd probably have to give it a 9 out of 10. In my opinion, this is a great game, and I have a lot of fun with it, with just trapping people and like removing their souls and shit. And it's a very unique game, so it just makes it like totally different from most other game experiences, so I at least say that a 9 out of 10 is worthy in my books. Oh, and before ending this part of it, don't you think that mirror is like trippy as balls? Yeah. Anyways, let's move on. Alright, so now we're done with the first game, and I must say it was actually a really good start. So now let's take a look at the second game, which is Kagero Deception 2, which was released in 1998. But this time there are many changes all around. Now, as you can see, this game is actually in a third-person perspective rather than a first-person perspective, so you can pretty much like see yourself in this game rather than just being like an invisible ghost moving around. But in case you're wondering who you're using in this game, you are a heroine named Millennia. And not only that she has a nice sounding name, but also I find her to be pretty interesting, and yet she's a silent protagonist, so I really don't know how that works, but I don't know, I just find her to be a really cool looking person. But one major thing that they did change with this game though, which is actually pretty interesting, is that they actually added trap combos, meaning rather than just hitting like the enemy like just once, you can actually like hit them like more than once with different combinations of traps, and the more combinations you get with the traps, you actually get more money out of it. Which I think that's actually a pretty cool change, I find. Also, there are environmental traps too that you can use with like combination with the stuff around the environment, which is actually another cool thing I do like. Oh, but one thing I really need to say about the cover is, my god, that looks plain ugly as hell. Like, what the fuck did they do to her face? I think they pulled the Mega Man #1 out of her. And yet the European cover for this game actually looks so much nicer. Like, I'm just like, oh, why can't we have that one? Like, ours just looks like a piece of shit. But good thing enough though is that I at least don't judge a game by its cover, because or else I would have been missing out on a lot. Oh, but you also gotta wonder, what does like the word Kagero really actually mean? Well, I am not entirely sure, but I do know that there is an anime called Ninja Scrolls, and there's actually a character in that anime named Kagero, so I thought that was kinda interesting. And now let's move on to the story. Now, when Millennia was a child, she was actually kidnapped by some creepy-ass clown, which I have no idea why the fuck would you want to trust anything like that. But now she pretty much works for a new type of people called Time-Noids, or for short, TMD. And there's pretty much a war going on between the humans and the Time-Noids, because the Time-Noids are actually have the ability to like live forever pretty much, which is kind of unfair. So there was some conflict, and the only reason why that they kidnapped Millennia was because they can use her as a puppet to like kill the humans with a human, which is kind of weird to think about it. So she was pretty much just being used without even like her even realizing it though. And I actually do kind of like the story in this one actually. I think it's actually pretty good. Oh, but here's one fun fact that I actually found to be pretty cool though to think about, is that people have said that this game can technically be a prequel to the first game. Now I'm not going to spoil anything for that there, but if you actually know what I'm talking about, I just find it to be pretty interesting for all the assumptions that people have made with that. But one thing that also has changed with the gameplay between this one and the first one is that instead of putting like as many traps as you want, like you were able to in the first one, in this one you can only have 3 traps in one room, but of a certain type, like a ceiling trap, a floor trap, or a wall trap. And I find that was actually done pretty well, considering that if you were able to have as much traps as you want in one room, well, that'd be kind of a clusterfuck. Oh, do you ever remember the intruders that had really stupid names like in the first one? Well, they're back and even more derpier than ever. Like, first off, there's Blackword. So is he like a word that's black? I don't know. And then we have stats, or stats, because there's a Z at the end. Yeah, I don't get it. And then there's Kill Rain. So does he like kill the rain or something? I don't fucking know. But the winner for having the most derpiest name I've ever seen in a video game is dun 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 Goatbone. Wow, that is just Tits McGee right there. Like, what the fuck were they thinking? Like, you might as well just call him Dick Fuckward. Anyways, I find this game to be more strategic than the first one, considering there's just different combinations that you can do. Also, they have 2 very interesting traps that they have in this game, or at least joke traps, or whatever you want to call them. One of the traps in this game is the Mask of Artabaran from the first game, where basically it just drops on their head, and it's actually like kind of funny. And then there's another one where it's supposed to be like a rock, and it's supposed to represent that monster from the show Monster Rancher, if anyone actually remembers that, like the, you know, the one with like the eyeball or whatever. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it there, because I have not watched that show in like forever, but yeah. Basically they actually had something from Monster Rancher in this game, which is actually kind of hilarious. Alright, so we basically went over some of the basic things with like the story and whatever, and some random shit, so now let's move on to the other things. Now, the controls are pretty good for the most part, but the one thing I do have an issue with is the walking. I just find it to be a little bit awkward and slow, and sometimes it's just annoying to the fact that you have to use the D-pad, and yet it can be a little bit rough on your fingers after a while. But other than that though, I think they were okay. Now, the graphics are really nice for a 1998 game. Like, it actually does have a little bit of detail here and there, and I just think it all just looks really nice and, like, suits the theme very well. Now, as for the music in this game, I think it's really fucking awesome, just like the first one. In fact, there are some songs in this one that I actually do like better than some in the first one. So that's saying a lot. And oddly enough, one of the composers who did a lot of the music in this game is Hiroshi Miyazaki. Now, in case you're wondering that you don't know who he is, well, he actually did some of the music for Ninja Gaiden 2 and 3 for the NES, which is actually pretty badass. But there is one song on the OST for this game that I never actually heard it inside the game, but I have like at least heard it like when I actually downloaded the soundtrack, and that song is called Frozen Dark Night. And basically what the song is that it's a song with a female singer in it, and it's in Japanese, and it has like a bunch of like kick-ass like guitar solos and everything. It's actually a pretty cool sounding song, I find. And in case you're wondering what it sounds like, well, I know I have it on my channel somewhere, so you can just look that up. But yes, I just never understood why that wasn't even put into the game, but yet it was on the soundtrack randomly. I don't know. There's probably a reason for it though, I just have no idea. So, anyways, overall, the music is fucking great. Now, if you want to buy this game, it usually costs around from like $20 to $40. Now, I know it's not really rare, but it is kind of uncommon, I find. And also, it was pretty surprising though, because that game went up in price quite a bit. Because I remember before, I'd only used to see it from like 20 to 25, but now it just went up to 40. Wow, times really changed, man. And in case you're wondering how much I got my copy for, I got it for like $20, and I got it off of eBay. And I must say, I was actually pretty satisfied with that. So, if you ever do see it randomly or whatever, I would suggest picking that game up too if you were just collecting for the PS1. Now, if I were to rate this game, I'd probably have to give it an 8 out of 10. A really good, unique game with great atmosphere, and also the changes were actually pretty good too. Now, I did kind of like the first one a bit more than this one, only because the walking in this one is like kind of weird. And also, I do kind of like the RPG elements that they had in the first one as well. But that doesn't mean that it's like entirely better. I just think that like the other one's a little bit better though. But I still really enjoy both games. One thing I do find kind of interesting that Tecmo actually did that is related with this game. In Dead or Alive 2, you can actually get a custom for Annie, I think that's how you pronounce it, where she has Millennia's outfit, which is actually kind of cool. Also, in Fatal Frame, if you actually clear the game, you can actually get Millennia's outfit as well. And I guess that proves that Tecmo really likes to show love for her. Okay, one more thing I have to mention before I wrap this up is that, why the hell is the water yellow? Like when the secret places, is that like they piss in it or something? Or is it just naturally yellow? Or maybe it's not even that, and maybe it's just a sewer line. I didn't have the faintest idea, but all I know is that every time I got to that part, I always used to make fun of it with that. Alright, so that brings us to the end of this part, so overall, Kagero is a good game. Alright, that's 2 down and 2 more to go. So now the next game we're going to be looking at is Deception 3 Dark Delusion. It was released in the year 2000. So this time the game is still in third person, and most of the same stuff from Kagero also appears in here. But of course there are new features like training mode, where you pretty much test out your traps. Also there's a mission mode where you just complete the objective. No other explanations really need to be needed. But I really do like the way how you have to make your traps in this one. Like, you can customize your traps in many different ways. For an example, you can actually choose like what element you want, like fire, ice, thunder, etc. Then there are some orbs, which pretty much make it either stronger or faster depending on how much you want on there, but it costs a lot of money, so don't like overload on it too much. And finally there's a ring, which basically what that does is that you can basically choose the way how the trap activates in a different way. So there are many options that you can pick to make your own trap, which is pretty fucking cool. But sadly, it's gonna take a long time to actually view like all the many different options that you can pick, so I'm sure it's probably gonna take more than one playthrough, that's for damn sure. But there is one specific trap that I actually do find to be pretty interesting though, and it's called the Slave Rock. Basically, when the rock is rolling down a slope or stairs or something, you can actually hold down the button and you can pretty much control where the rock goes for a short time, which is actually kind of a cool thing that they added though. One more addition that they did add with this game that would make it easier just to make money was that basically when you combo like an enemy and he's already dead, you can still rack up combos to make even more money, so basically you're pretty much beating up a dead guy. And now for the story for this game. It's pretty fucking weird, and I have no idea what the hell they were trying to do with it, but I'll explain it a little bit. Basically, you take control of another heroine, but this time her name is Rena, and, well, I find she looks kinda cute, but anyway, her and her family is kidnapped, and I find that the boat looks kinda like a wooden UFO more than anything, but whatever. But when they were kidnapped, they were actually brought to the king, and Rena was sold by slavery while her family was murdered. Like, what the fuck is wrong with these assholes? And if you think that's bad, they even kill a little kid. What a bunch of heartless fuckheads. And the shittier part about all of this shit happening is the fact that all of this stuff is happening on her birthday. Yes, she was kidnapped on her own birthday. Wow, what a shitty fucking day to have. So you're pretty much thrown in jail and you meet a kid named Marco, and basically he helps you out by giving you this gemstone, and basically you get a really weird power from it where basically you see traps and you can set them up. So I guess that's the way how they're trying to introduce you into like making traps and stuff. But after killing the guards, you pretty much like escape from jail with the help of Marco, and you just gotta love the fact that like just a boulder comes out of nowhere and just crushes a guard. I just found that funny. So pretty much after that, you just meet more people within the family of Marco and all that type of stuff. And that's pretty much where I'm going to stop right there because, well, trust me, this story gets really fucked up. But I guess I could explain one thing that really does fuck up the entire thing that really doesn't make sense to me at all. Basically what happens is that when you pick up that gemstone and you like get like the powers to like set traps and all that, pretty much like the more you use traps, not in the game but in like the story wise, the more you use them, the slowly you get killed because it's a curse. Yeah, I'm lost for words right now. Like, this doesn't make any fucking sense at all. Like, I really don't understand what they were trying to do. Like, I think they were, like, running out of ideas at this point, so it's just really shittingly bad, weird, whatever. So yeah, that's pretty much just all I'm gonna say about the story. And the names, well, they're all gonna be retarded throughout all the games, but this one, there is one specific thing I will mention that I haven't mentioned with the other ones before that I think you might get a laugh at. Now, it's not really so much as, like, a bad, stupid name, but it's more of on the lines of, like, a name of a different character from something else, and it just makes you wonder, like, I wonder where they got that name from. Like, who else do you even know with the name Raditz? Well, if you guess someone from Dragon Ball Z, well, you got that right, because, oddly enough, there's a person in this game named Raditz. I just find it hilarious to know that they actually took someone else's name from something else and then put it as like their own character here, but at least they didn't like make him look exactly the same thing with like the spiky hair, and if they did that they would have gotten sued, so at least thankful for that. So let's move on to the other things, like the controls. They're not bad, but the only problem I have is that they still suffer from the same thing as Kagero. You want to know the worst part is that since the PS1 does have a controller that has like dual analog sticks, which is really good, but the thing is, since this game is made in the year 2000, and yet this game doesn't support it, that's really fucked up. Like, I really cannot understand why they didn't do that. That would have like made my life so much easier. But they did add one cool thing, is that instead of like just doing a regular sidestep by pressing R1 or L1, instead, if you like just tap it twice, you can do a barrel roll. And yes, I'll throw in the joke, just for all you people.
Do a barrel roll!
Alright, I hope you're happy about that. But other than that, nothing much has really changed with the controls, which is kind of disappointing because I just found it a little bit awkward with Kagero, so I really thought that they would at least improve on that, but no. Now the graphics do look nice, and they are actually pretty improved from before, and they also now have CGI cutscenes, which was something that wasn't in any of the other ones, unless you include the intro. And oddly enough, there's actually voice acting in these CGI parts. But I can't really say much about the voice acting, considering it's in Japanese, and well, I can't really speak that language, so well, I'll just have to leave it as it is. Oh, and here's another new thing actually, is that Reina actually talks, so she's not really a silent protagonist. So pretty much she has her own dialogue, which is all fine by me. But there is one specific part that I will show you that really I don't understand why the fuck they did it like this. Okay, really? Is it really that necessary to be all like, Marco, Missy, like over and over again? Like, just shut up and just get over it. Anyways, I just got off topic for a little bit, but overall the graphics in the game are actually pretty nice. And as for the music in this game, it's still just as amazing as the music in Kagero. Then again, it is from the same composer after all, so that may explain it. So you all know what I'm about to say, just how it's gonna be all like suiting the theme and all that type of shit, so I'm just gonna leave it as this. The music just keeps on going and does not disappoint. Now, if you want to buy this game, the price of this game is also pretty surprising. It actually goes from around $20 to almost $50. Now, I never knew that this game could actually go up to like $50, but then again, I did get it for $25, so that's about half, so I guess that would be fair. But yes, I actually have seen this game for like almost $50 once, so I guess it's really getting up there slowly. And as random as it gets, Reina also has a costume in Fatal Frame after clearing the game, so kind of like Millennia as well. And I actually do kind of like the character Reina, but the only thing that does kind of suck is the fact that the story is just so messed up. And remember how I said that she's actually kind of cute? Well, I'm still sticking by that though, although I will like to change one thing though. And that is that I find her pants are just too damn high. Just kind of like the rates. The rates are too damn high. You know, I never actually thought I would be able to make a reference like that, especially with this game. Now, if I were to rate this game, I'd probably have to give it a 7 out of 10. I still find it to be a good game, but just not as good as the rest of them. I find they really should have improved the controls from the previous one. And not only that, but I also just found the story to be just really fucked up, and like not in a good way, but just in a really weird and not make sense way. But don't get me wrong, I still find this game to be pretty enjoyable for the most part, considering that it does have good creativity. There still could have been a few better changes, I find. And that is why I find a 7 out of 10 is fine as it is. Alright everyone, this is the last game. And this would be my first review for a PS2 game, and the game is known as Trapt, which was released in 2005. And you gotta love in the title that they put the R backwards. But in Japan, this game is known as Kagero 2 Dark Illusions. So technically this is a sequel to a game that is already a sequel, but can also be known as a prequel. Okay, you lost me there. So just to avoid confusion, we'll just say fuck it and call it the fourth game. So some new things that are in this one is survival mode, which you take on waves of enemies in a time limit. It's pretty amusing for the most part. And then there's one really interesting one that they added in, which is a side story, which you do during the main story. Yeah, I can't really explain that any other way. But one of the most awesome things that they added in this one was something called a dark illusion. And what that is pretty much a hidden trap within the area that you pretty much have to discover, and it's like really awesome looking. Like here, I'll show you right now. yeah, he is fucking dead as shit now. So yeah, that was a pretty cool thing that they added in. And of course there's new traps within the game. Also, I find some of them to be pretty cool and interesting. But I do remember one of the funniest ones I ever seen in this one. I can't remember the name of it there, but I do remember it was like a super nutsack attack where basically it was like a wooden horse with a blade on it and it would come up from the ground and it would like nutsack the person. Yeah, it looked really fucking painful. But anyways, let's move on to the story, and it goes on a little bit something like this. So you are Princess Allure, and you are at your mother's grave praying for her. And of course some of her family and friends are there, and some random people at the kingdom. But all of a sudden, the king is assassinated, kinda like in the first game. But Allure and her maid friend Rachel escape the kingdom, and they head to an old castle randomly, which is not really the smartest idea. But do you want to know why they escaped the kingdom? Because they're framed by someone, also kinda like the first game as well. But after they get inside, Allure gets a demon arm, kinda like Nightmare from Soul Calibur, but this arm is called the Demon's Mark, meaning that she's being used by a mysterious fiend. So the princess pretty much got turned into a killing machine, just like all the rest of the characters from the other games. And that is pretty much the basic of the story. And so far, I actually think it's actually not that bad. In fact, it's actually a bigger improvement than the story in number 3. And of course, I have to bring this up again, but there is even more stupid names in this one. But I find there are more names in this one that are like characters from like other things. For an example, there's Aladdin. Well, from Aladdin, you know, the Disney movie. And then they take another name from Dragon Ball Z, but this time it's Hercule. And finally, there's Elmer, as in Elmer Fudd. Kill the weapon! But now that I think about it, I think all the other games also had something like that too. Like for instance, from the first game, there was actually someone named Guile, like from the Street Fighter series. But anyways, I'm sure you're all tired about me talking about really stupid names of people in this game. Now the controls are really good and responsive, and finally we get to use the analog sticks. And I still don't understand why they didn't do that in Deception 3. So finally they improved the controls in a third-person type game. But I would probably have to say that the controls in this game and in the first game probably had the best. Now the graphics in this game are actually really nice for a PS2 game, and I just like the way how it looks. It just looks really soothing for the game, so that's why I think that the graphics for this game are actually really good. Now as for the music in this game, I actually find it to be really good, but sadly I don't find it to be as good as the rest of them. Like this is probably like the weakest soundtrack out of all 4 of the games. But then again, it's not the same composer that did the music for 2 and 3, so I guess that makes sense. But I still find it to be pretty soothing for the most part. So overall, the soundtrack for this game is still good, but just not as good as the other games. And one thing I did kind of like about the alternate costumes in this game is that you can actually get the outfit of Reina and Millennia. And it takes some time to just unlock it, and it even takes even more time to just buy it because it's a lot of money. But there is one specific side story that I really do like, and that's the one where you actually get to fight Millennia. Yes, Millennia is actually in this game, and yes, she doesn't even talk in this one either, but it's actually a pretty epic battle if you ask me. But I will give you one quick hint about something, and don't worry, there's going to be no spoilers at all. Now there is an important bad guy in this game, and his name is Herzog. I know, just ignore the stupid name. But yeah, basically when you fight him, there's actually a really easy way that you can beat him that actually it's pretty laughable. So basically what you do is that you see that like pink stone up there? Basically what you do is that you go under that, and there's an attack that he does where he like jumps up in the air and tries to like hit you down. But since he jumps so high, he actually hits his head on the crystal, which is actually really hilarious. And I just wanted to point that out because I just thought that was a really funny flaw for such a big, powerful enemy. Also, one thing that you can do in this game that you weren't able to do in the other ones is that in this one, you can actually buy rooms, which actually expands a castle. But then again, I guess that can't be considered as like creating your own rooms like in the first one, but instead this one you buy them. Now, if you want to buy this game, it usually costs around like $20 to $30, sometimes $15. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure about the prices on this one though, but I know it really differs. But I do consider it a great find if you ask me, considering that I don't really see it that often. Now if I had to rate this game, I'd probably have to give it a 9 out of 10. I find it to be a great game that is fun, interesting, very different, and also I just enjoyed the hell out of it myself. But most importantly, this game improved over all the other installments. But sadly when this game came out, nothing else was heard about it again. Which is unfortunate because I really enjoyed all these games. And after getting a PS3, I was really hoping that Tecmo would make another game, but since the PS4 is on the way soon, I don't think that will happen. Unless maybe the PS4, but you know what, I'm not going to get my hopes up too much. But I don't know, I guess a man can only hope just to get Tecmo Koei to make another game. But as for the best of all in the series, well, I can't really choose one, but I guess I would say that either Tecmo's Deception or Trapt would probably be one of the bests. But of course, Kagero is still a great game and has a lot of great things about it, and 3 is still good despite a couple things, but it's still a fun game overall. But either way, all the games are all good in their own way, despite some little things here and there about each one, they're all really good. Well, I had a feeling that this would be a very long video, considering that I did review 4 games in one video, so I guess I'll might as well end things here. I hope you enjoyed this review, thanks for watching and commenting.